I wanted to talk about feeling offbeat whenever you feel like no matter what you're doing or what the world is asking of you at the time, you always feel opposite. When it's time to work, you're tired. When it's time to sleep, you're restless. When it's time, for you to have fun, you're upset. Whenever it's time for you to be serious, you're craving to let loose. No matter what is happening, you always seem to be on the opposite spectrum. And this can especially happen in relationships of any kind, not even romantic relationships, but just whenever you are by somebody, you're always opposite. You're always feeling opposite. No matter what they want, you want the opposite, and vice versa. I went through months, maybe even a year period, where I felt like that. I always felt offbeat no matter what I did or didn't do. It just didn't feel right. Um, I'm a big believer that change comes from within and not without. I don't think that there's anything anybody can teach you or tell you to fix you or, to force you to grow. It's something that will just naturally happen. Um, I do think that when you feel that natural inclination to grow, you can do things to help assist that growth. For me, that looked like forcing myself to be present even when it felt impossible for me, even when it was inauthentic for me. I forced myself to do things that I felt on a deeper level that I needed, whether that was something as simple as eating more often or eating, better quality foods, less processed foods, or eating more fermented foods, exercising, meditation, lack of technology, just communicating more with my animals or with nature, allowing myself to not lose that connection, to not consider myself silly for, having a connection with the inanimate objects of life or the things that are lesser, like animals. Like I said, a lot of this was inauthentic for me. It was something that I had to force myself to do, and it kind of felt it was something that I deeply wanted to do, but all of these things felt really performative in the beginning. Um, and as I progressed, as I learned how to make these things my own, in the sense of, working out for the enjoyment of the physical exercise and not to change my body to, get fit necessarily. Um, Whenever I started to eat better, not to, increase my lifespan or to, seem better than others, but to feel better in the moment. And I started listening to my body and the things that it was telling me. It took a long time, but I noticed that my life was changing, that this growth that was just in the back of my mind was starting to get pushed forward, and I was starting to authenticate, I guess. I was starting to come into myself, and it really was not easy, but that's the thing that I think people misunderstand. You aren't here to be happy all the time, and things that are good for you don't always have to um, seem healthy or seem good or seem like a happy ending. Sometimes you need to go through rough things in life. Um, I think even in the quote unquote like spiritual community, or people were seeking to raise their consciousness, raise their vibration, people seem to want to skip the hurt or skip the negative entirely. But this process of growth is painful. This process of growth doesn't just happen overnight from this point of view. It seems like it's never going to come sometimes. It seems like you're lost sometimes, but then you'll have those moments of clarity where you're like, why am I questioning myself? I know exactly what I'm doing. And you need to have that strength. You need to form that sense of community, to where you can push through those moments of doubt and you can continue. Because life isn't always going to be easy. Life isn't always going to be, pretty from this perspective. Life gets rough, but that doesn't negate anything that you've learned prior. And I'm just now getting to the point where I'm starting to feel on beat. And I think that feeling off beat is natural too. Sadly, it's not something to eradicate from our lives. I just feel like the more that I give in to the situation of things that are in front of me, without thinking about, this is going to sound bad, but without thinking about how I feel about it, without breaking that down and turning it around in my head until I don't want to do something. Like, let's say, I want to go exercise, but there's an aspect of me that's kind of like, oh, well, I could go do a few other things before I do that. So maybe if I just, well, I could, no, stop. Just do the thing. Go exercise. You want to exercise? Go exercise. Stop coming up with excuses. Go do that. And you can be done with your exercise and then come back to all of those, well, and you'll start to feel more on beat because nothing is getting in your way. Instead of your monkey mind trying to control everything and put it in a sensible order, you can just exist. And it really starts to make a huge difference. At least it did for me.